I had promised myself I'd never let him near me again. Not his voice, not his shadow, not even a memory of his hands. Yet that night, as I stood in front of the tall glass doors of the Whitmore Hotel, clutching my invitation tighter than I should have, my chest felt like it was caught in a vice. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to feel like prey again. Just 1 hour, Sam, I whispered to myself. You'll make an appearance, smile politely, and leave before anyone notices you're gone. I pulled my coat tighter against the biting December wind. Inside, through the frosted windows, golden lights danced on crystal chandeliers. People in elegant gowns and tailored suits laughed over champagne. To them, this was a holiday fundraiser. For me, it felt like walking straight into enemy territory. 2 years. 2 years since I ran. Since I packed my life into 2 duffel bags and drove halfway across the country to start over. Ethan Ross. Even saying his name in my head felt like a curse. I could still feel the phantom ache where his fingers had once dug into my arm. The way his words had hollowed me out slowly until I didn't recognize my own reflection. You're nothing without me, he used to say, and for too long I believed him, but not anymore. I shook my head, forcing the memories back into the locked box where they belonged. Tonight wasn't about him. Tonight, I was Samantha Blake, interior designer for the hospital's new pediatric wing. I had clients to impress and a career to protect. So I pushed the door open and stepped into a wave of warm air and soft music. The scent of roses and expensive cologne hit me instantly. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter swirled around the room like smoke. Everyone moved as if they belonged here, as if they were born knowing how to command a room. I wasn't one of them. But I held my head high, adjusted the strap of my simple black dress, and took a step forward. That's when I saw him. Ethan, standing near the bar in a charcoal suit, his dark hair slicked back, a glass of scotch in his hand. He hadn't changed. Still tall. Still exuding that easy confidence that used to pull me in like gravity. And just like that, the air vanished from my lungs. Panic clawed its way up my throat. My legs turned to stone, then to jelly. I wanted to run, but I couldn't even move. His eyes scanned the room like a predator. Not yet. He hadn't seen me. If I left now quietly, I could still get away. I turned on my heel, Samantha. The voice froze me in place. No. No, no, no. I felt his gaze burn into the back of my neck. Slowly, I turned my head. Ethan was looking straight at me. A smile spread across his face. Well, well. I didn't think I'd see you here. My heart pounded so loud I was sure people could hear it over the music. Run. My mind screamed it before my body caught up. Run now. So I did. Not like a graceful guest at a charity gala. No. I ran like a cornered animal weaving through the crowd as glasses wobbled on trays and conversations broke off mid-sentence. Behind me, I heard him call my name again. But I didn't stop. I just needed somewhere, anywhere to hide. That's when I saw the linen closet at the end of the hall, and without thinking, I slipped inside, shutting the door behind me. I didn't realize it wasn't empty. Samantha. His voice low, smooth, too familiar, cut through the hum of the party like a blade. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. Every nerve ending screamed, "Go. Get out now." I turned sharply, praying the sound of my heels wouldn't give me away. Samantha Blake. Too late. His voice carried across the grand hall, and I swear it made the chandeliers tremble. I kept walking faster now. The crowd pressed in from every side. Waiters in crisp white jackets weaved through with trays of champagne. Laughter and music swirled, but all I could hear was my heartbeat hammering in my ears. I couldn't let him catch up. I couldn't let him touch me. Not again. Samantha, wait. It's been years. Don't you think we should talk? Talk. The last time he'd said those words, I ended up with a split lip and a broken lease. No, not tonight. Not ever. I weaved through clusters of guests, nearly knocking over a floral centerpiece. Someone hissed, "Watch it," but I didn't stop. My breath came fast and shallow. My palms were slick. The air in the ballroom felt thick, heavy. I needed an exit. But everywhere I turned, there were people. Eyes. Questions. And him. I could feel his presence behind me cutting through the crowd, like a shark through water. Think Sam. Find a way out. I spotted a side hallway partially hidden behind a velvet curtain. Without thinking, I darted through. But the hallway was long and empty, no exit in sight. Only doors with gold handles and no signs. Samantha. His voice echoed closer. Panic rose in my throat. I stumbled, catching myself on a marble table. A tray of drinks wobbled. A glass of red wine tipped over, splashing across a guest's pale gown. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I gasped, but didn't stop. The woman's shocked face blurred as I kept moving. My mind screamed hide. Now, that's when I saw it. A long banquet table pushed against the wall, covered with a pristine white linen cloth that reached the floor. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I dove. The air under the table smelled faintly of polished wood and expensive cologne. Knees pressed to my chest, I wrapped my arms around myself and tried to quiet my breathing. Please, don't let him find me. Don't let him see me here. Outside, I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Samantha. His voice was softer now, almost coaxing. You don't have to run. I just want to talk. No. No, you don't. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself invisible. The footsteps faded. But then a deeper, unfamiliar voice spoke so close I almost screamed. Looking for something under there, I froze. Slowly, I looked up and found myself staring at the polished shoes and tailored trousers of a man I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just any man. This was Nicholas Reed, the Billionaire CEO hosting the entire gala. The air beneath the table was thick and stale, laced with the scent of polished oak and faint cologne. My knees ached against the marble floor. My dress bunched awkwardly around my thighs as I pressed myself against the table leg, trying to become as small as humanly possible. Above me, the sound of clinking glasses and muted laughter felt distant, like it belonged to another world, one I no longer had access to. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. Stay quiet, Sam. He'll give up. He always did, eventually. A shadow passed near the edge of the linen. I held my breath as leather soles clicked against the floor. Samantha. His voice was closer now, softer. You don't have to hide from me. I just want to talk. No. No, you don't. I pressed my hand over my mouth, praying he wouldn't think to look under the tables. Seconds stretched into what felt like hours. Then silence. I waited. Counted to 10, 20, 50. Finally, I let out a slow, trembling breath. Maybe he was gone. But just as I shifted my weight, I heard it. A voice. Low, deep, and unfamiliar. Are you inspecting the furniture? Or hiding from someone? I froze. The sound came from directly above me. Slowly terrified, I tilted my head upward. 2 perfectly polished dress shoes stood planted on either side of me. The fabric of tailored trousers brushed lightly against the linen. I lifted my gaze further and found a pair of steel gray eyes staring down at me, sharp and unreadable. My stomach lurched. This wasn't just any man. This was Nicholas Reed, the host of the gala, the CEO of Reed Medical Technologies, the man whose photo graced Forbes and Wall Street Journal covers like clockwork. And here I was, crouched under his table like an unhinged raccoon. Oh, God. A weak, awkward laugh escaped my lips. I was just checking the structural integrity of my table, he offered dryly. Heat flared in my cheeks. Yes, exactly, I'm an interior designer. Occupational hazard, you know. He didn't move, didn't even blink. Instead, he crouched slightly, lowering himself just enough for our eyes to meet through the veil of linen. Most people do that standing up, he said. My mouth opened, closed, opened again. I can explain. Please do. I shifted awkwardly, trying to crawl backwards, but my heel caught on the edge of the tablecloth, nearly yanking it down. Nicholas caught it with one hand, before it slipped his other hand, reaching out toward me. Careful, he murmured. You're going to bring the whole table down. I froze as his fingers brushed mine. For some reason, his touch didn't make me flinch like I expected. Outside the table, I heard Ethan's voice faint, but still too close for comfort. Samantha, panic shot through me again. Please, I whispered to Nicholas. Don't let him see me. He studied me for a long moment. His expression didn't soften, but his eyes shifted slightly like he was piecing something together. Finally, he spoke. Do you want me to help you? Or not? I hesitated for a beat too long, and in that moment, Nicholas Reed, billionaire genius and complete stranger, made the choice for me. He stood up, reached under the table, and said, Then stay close, and don't make a sound. I didn't answer him. I couldn't. My lips parted, but no words came out. All I could do was stare at his hand suspended in the dim light, steady and unshaking. Do you want my help? Or do you plan on living under this table permanently? His voice was calm. Too calm for a man finding a stranger crouched between his legs. I swallowed hard, my throat painfully dry. Shh. His gray eyes flicked beyond the linen. I froze as his head tilted slightly toward the ballroom entrance. And then I heard it. Samantha Ethan's voice closer now, sharper. Nicholas glanced back at me. You don't want him to see you, do you? I shook my head frantically. He didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he reached further under the table, his large, cool hand closing around my wrist. Then don't fight me. Before I could react, he tugged gently but firmly, pulling me out from beneath the table. The bright light of the hall made me blink. My legs wobbled as I struggled to keep my balance in my heels. Easy, he murmured, his hand steadying my elbow. I could smell him now, sandalwood, and something faintly citrus. It was infuriatingly grounding, as if his presence alone could quiet the storm inside me. But there was no time to dwell on that, because Ethan Ross was scanning the room, moving in our direction. Keep still, Nicholas said under his breath. And then before I could process what was happening, his arm slid around my waist. It wasn't a gentle touch. It wasn't intimate. It was calculated, protective, like a man shielding someone from incoming fire. To anyone watching, we would look like an ordinary couple, sharing a quiet moment in the corner of a crowded gala. But I could feel every muscle in my body tighten, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. Nicholas's voice came low near my ear. Take a breath. I obeyed before I realized it. Good, he said. From the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan pause. His eyes narrowed when they landed on us. Samantha. His voice was louder now, demanding. Nicholas turned his head slightly, meeting Ethan's glare with one of his own. "She's with me." His tone was even, controlled. But something in it carried a quiet warning. Ethan's jaw worked as if he were grinding his teeth. "With you, funny. She's never mentioned you before." "Then I suppose it's none of your business." Is it Nicholas's grip on my waist didn't falter? Ethan's eyes flicked between us. For a moment, I thought he might lunge forward anyway. But then he smirked, the kind of smirk that made my stomach twist. "This isn't over, Samantha," he said. "Not by a long shot." And with that, he turned and stalked away his cologne, leaving a sour trail in the air. The moment he disappeared into the crowd, my knees buckled. Nicholas caught me before I hit the ground. "You're safe now," he said softly. "He's gone." I wanted to believe him. But the tightness in my chest refused to loosen. I tried to pull away from him, mumbling a thank you, but his grip didn't loosen. Instead, he said the one thing I least expected: "You're shaking." "So tell me, why is a man like that hunting you down in the first place?" For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Nicholas's arm stayed firmly around my waist, anchoring me as the air seemed to thin around us. "Samantha." The sound of my name from Ethan's lips sliced through the music, sharp and accusing. My body tensed. Nicholas felt it. His hand shifted slightly at my side, not tighter, but steadier somehow. "She's with me," he said. The words weren't loud, but they carried a weight that made Ethan falter mid-step. "With you." Ethan repeated, his lips curling into a smirk. Funny. She didn't seem the type to trade up so quickly. My stomach twisted. Nicholas didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. Instead, his voice came low and deliberate. "You should walk away. Now." Ethan's smirk slipped for just a second. His eyes flicked to Nicholas, scanning him as if weighing his odds. Then he chuckled darkly. "You think you can protect her from me?" Nicholas's gaze didn't waver. Yes. One word. Calm. Unapologetic. The air between them crackled. I held my breath, waiting for Ethan to push back to raise his voice to make a scene. But he didn't. Not this time. Instead, he leaned back slightly, that familiar glint of malice flashing in his eyes. "This isn't over, Sam," he said. "You can't hide behind him forever." Then he turned and melted into the crowd, leaving behind the faint scent of his cologne, and a shiver running down my spine. The moment he was out of sight, my legs gave way. Nicholas caught me, his hands strong yet careful, as he guided me to a nearby chair. "Easy," he murmured. "You're all right." I wasn't sure if he meant physically or the other kind of all right. I hadn't felt in years. I wanted to argue, to say I didn't need saving. But the truth was, I'd never felt more grateful for a stranger in my life. As I tried to steady my breath, Nicholas crouched in front of me. "Do you want to tell me why a man like that is following you?" He asked, his voice calm, almost too calm. I hesitated, because how do you explain to a stranger that your past isn't just messy, it's dangerous? "Thank you," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the murmur of the crowd. Nicholas Reed. This impossibly composed man who didn't know me and owed me nothing had just stepped between me and a nightmare I thought I'd left behind. And yet, I couldn't let myself linger. I pushed up from the chair, smoothing my dress with trembling hands. "I should go," I said quickly. "You've already done more than enough." I turned to leave, desperate to escape not just Ethan, but the heat rising in my chest. But before I could take 2 steps, a hand caught my wrist. "Wait." His voice was quiet, but it stopped me cold. I looked back. Nicholas was standing now, his expression as unreadable as ever. But there was something in his eyes, not coldness, not judgment, something else. Amusement. "Do you often crawl under tables when you see someone you know?" he asked. The question, so unexpected, made me blink. Then, to my own surprise, a laugh tumbled out. Not a full, joyous sound. More like a startled bubble breaking the surface of still water. Only on special occasions, I said, my lips curving despite myself. Nicholas tilted his head, his mouth tugging at the corner. Not quite a smile, but close. "I see. So this is a hobby." I shook my head, feeling the tension in my shoulders ease by a fraction. "No, just an occupational hazard." Occupational hazard. I bit my lip, heat creeping up my neck. "I'm an interior designer. I guess I'm overly curious about tables." That earned me a soft huff of air from him, something between a sigh and a chuckle. "You're a terrible liar," he said. "I know." His fingers loosened around my wrist, but he didn't let go completely. "You don't have to tell me what's going on," he added quietly. "But if that man comes near you again—" I swallowed hard. "He won't." Nicholas studied me for a long moment, his gaze sharp and steady. "Good," he said finally. Then, as if realizing how long he'd been holding me, he released my wrist. "You should go," he said, his tone returning to that calm, almost distant timbre. I nodded, clutching my small clutch bag like a lifeline. "Thank you. Again. I mean it." I turned to leave my heels clicking softly against the marble floor, but as I reached the door, I felt his eyes on me, and for reasons I couldn't name, a part of me wished he wouldn't look away. The next morning, I walked into the conference room of Reed Technologies for a client meeting, and sitting at the head of the table, his gray eyes sharp, his expression unreadable, was Nicholas Reed. The next morning, I walked into the glass-walled conference room, clutching my portfolio tighter than I should have. My heart was still unsettled from the night before, the memory of Ethan's voice. The venom behind his smile lingered like smoke in my lungs. "This is a new day, Sam. Focus. Don't think about him." I drew in a deep breath and stepped into the room. And there he was, Nicholas Reed, sitting at the head of the long mahogany table in a perfectly tailored navy suit, his gray eyes scanning over a stack of papers. I froze mid-step. It hadn't occurred to me that the CEO I'd been preparing this pitch for would be him. Of course he would be. This was Reed Technologies, after all. His name was on the building. Nicholas glanced up, and for the briefest moment his gaze softened. "Ms. Blake," he said coolly, giving no hint that 12 hours ago I'd been crouched under his table like a lunatic. "Mr. Reed," I replied, forcing my voice steady. "Please, let's hear your proposal." I swallowed hard and moved to the projector, willing my hands not to shake. As I spoke, Nicholas leaned back in his chair. Fingers steepled his expression unreadable. Every so often he'd tilt his head slightly, as if he were trying to peer straight through me. It was unnerving. But I pressed on, layering in my usual humor to mask my nerves. For the pediatric wing, I'd recommend adding a splash of color to the lobby, I said, clicking to the next slide. Right now, it feels a little emotionally sterile, like a place where plants come to die. A few team members chuckled softly. Nicholas didn't. Instead, he raised one brow ever so slightly. "Are you suggesting my hospital has the emotional warmth of a morgue?" The room went silent. I froze, then let out a small laugh. "Not at all. I'm suggesting we bring it to life so that even the healthiest guests want to stay longer." To my surprise, the corner of Nicholas's mouth twitched barely, but it was there, Proceed, he said. As I wrapped up, I dared a glance at him. He wasn't smiling, but he wasn't glaring either. When the meeting ended, I gathered my things quickly, eager to escape. But as I reached for the door, his voice stopped me. Ms. Blake. I turned. Nicholas was still seated, but his eyes were fixed on me with quiet intensity. Do you always make jokes during presentations? I hesitated, then nodded. Only when the person at the head of the table looks like he hasn't laughed since the Bush administration. For a split second, I thought I saw a flicker of amusement in his eyes. But then it was gone. Be careful, Ms. Blake, he said evenly. Not everyone finds that charming. Noted, I replied, offering a polite smile. I stepped into the hall, my heart still pounding. I told myself I was relieved the meeting was over. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the truth. It should have ended there. But it didn't, because every time I turned around that week there, he was Nicholas Reed, with his sharp gray eyes, and that infuriating calmness showing up in places I didn't expect. It started with a cup of tea. I'd been staring at my laptop screen for hours, at my favorite corner cafe, trying and failing to finish the updated layout for the pediatric wing. The bell above the door jingled softly. I didn't look up, not until a shadow fell across my table. Chamomile with a splash of honey. No lemon. I blinked. There he was, Nicholas Reed, holding out a steaming paper cup like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. How do you? I began. You ordered it at the meeting yesterday, he said simply. Twice. I stared at him, caught somewhere between surprise and suspicion. Do you always memorize people's drink orders? Only when they're memorable, he said, sliding into the chair across from me without asking. I opened my mouth to protest, but nothing came out, because the truth was, no one had remembered something as small as my tea preference in years, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it. The next day, it happened again. I was in the hospital's reception area, taking photos of the dull waiting room to add to my mood board. Thinking of adding a jungle theme, I turned to find Nicholas standing there, hands in his pockets. His tie slightly loosened as if he'd been working late. I was thinking more modern oasis, I said. He glanced around. You'll need better lighting for that. I arched a brow. Are you an interior designer now? Only in my free time. Despite myself, I laughed. A real laugh. And for the first time since I'd met him, I caught it. The faintest curve of his lips. Not quite a smile, but close. It startled me more than it should have. Over the next week, our paths kept crossing. At the cafe, in the hospital lobby, even at the bookstore I escaped to on my lunch breaks. Each time Nicholas was there, calm, unhurried, watching me with those sharp gray eyes that somehow felt less like knives and more like anchors. And each time he surprised me. Don't buy that one, he said one afternoon, nodding at the self-help book in my hands. Why not? I challenged. You don't need fixing, he replied. You just need space to heal. I stood there clutching the book, unsure whether to be annoyed or touched, because no one had ever said something like that to me before. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling as my thoughts spun in a dangerous direction. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to notice how Nicholas always waited until I finished speaking before replying, or how his voice softened just slightly when he said my name. I'd built walls so high, even I couldn't see over them, and yet For the first time in years, I felt them start to crack. No, I told myself. Don't do this. Don't feel anything. But deep down, I already knew. I was beginning to fall for the man who wasn't supposed to matter. I should have known happiness doesn't last, because just as I let my guard down, the past came crashing back into my life louder and uglier than before. I hadn't seen him in weeks. Weeks where I let myself believe the worst was over. But predators don't stop hunting just because their prey has found a hiding place. It started with a text. Blocked number. No name. We need to talk. I deleted it. An hour later, another one. Ignore me, and I'll make sure your fancy CEO friend knows what kind of woman you really are. My fingers went cold. He can't find me. Not here. But deep down, I knew Ethan Ross didn't need to find me. He could create chaos from anywhere. Two days later, I saw him. It was late afternoon. I'd stopped by the small art supply store near the hospital to pick up swatches for the waiting room design. And there he was, leaning casually against my car, like he'd been waiting all day. "Samantha," he said, flashing that same smile I once mistook for charm. "You've been avoiding me." I froze. "Get away from my car." He took a slow step forward. "Not until we talk. I have nothing to say to you. See, that's where you're wrong." His voice dropped low. "You have everything to say, if you don't want me to open my mouth first." I clenched my fists. "Threatening me won't get you anywhere." Ethan laughed, the sound sharp and cold. "Sweetheart, I don't need to threaten. I just need to send one little video to Mr. Perfect CEO. My stomach twisted. What video? Oh, don't play dumb. He pulled out his phone, swiping to a blurry clip. It showed me standing in a cafe talking to Ethan. Me reaching out to snatch my wrist from his grip. From the right angle, it almost looked intimate. Like I wanted to be there. "You son of a help me, Sam." His smile vanished, replaced by something harder. "One meeting. One favor. Then I disappear. You're insane if you think I'll help you." "Am I?" He leaned closer. "Because the internet's always hungry for a story. And this one, it writes itself. The sweet little designer seducing a billionaire for his money, while meeting her ex on the side." I stepped back, my heart pounding. "Leave me alone," I said. "Make me." By the time I got back to my apartment, my phone was already buzzing. A notification. Then another. "Did you see this A-link?" I tapped it, and my heart stopped. There it was. The video. Cropped. Edited. Posted anonymously. The caption read, "CEO's girlfriend caught cozying up to mystery man in secret meeting." And the comments. I didn't even dare to look. My hands trembled as I set the phone down. He'd done it. Ethan had turned my new life into a weapon. And I knew exactly what would happen next. Nicholas Reed would see this. And the question wasn't if he would believe it. It was whether he believed me enough not to. The next morning, Nicholas didn't meet my eyes during the project review. And when he finally spoke, his words cut deeper than I imagined. "Tell me, Samantha, were you ever honest with me? I barely slept that night." The video looped in my mind over and over like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. By morning, my stomach was in knots. Still, I told myself it would be fine. Nicholas wasn't the type to believe gossip. He'd seen enough of the world to know better. Right. But when I walked into the conference room, his silence said everything. He didn't look up as I entered, didn't offer his usual curt nod, just sat there, fingers steepled under his chin, eyes fixed on some invisible point on the table. "Morning," I said, forcing my voice steady. No reply. The team filed in behind me, chatting softly, oblivious to the tension hanging in the air, like a storm about to break. Nicholas didn't say a word through the meeting. Not even when I presented a new sketch for the pediatric lounge, the one I'd stayed up all night refining. When the others left, I stayed behind, clutching my portfolio like it was a shield. "Is something wrong?" I asked finally. That's when he spoke. Was it true? I froze. Was what true? He raised his phone slightly, just enough for me to see the screen. The video. Muted. Looping. Ethan's hand on my wrist. My face turned away, lips moving in words the camera couldn't catch. Out of context, it looked damning. "Did you meet him?" Nicholas asked, his voice low. Controlled. Too controlled. "Yes," I said instantly. But not like that. I didn't want to. "Did you let him touch you?" The question hit me like a slap. I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. He grabbed me. I pulled away. "Nicholas, I swear it's not what it looks like." He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at me with those gray eyes that once felt steady and safe, now sharp as broken glass. "Tell me the truth, Samantha. I am telling you the truth." My voice cracked, but he didn't say anything, didn't reassure me, didn't reach for my hand like I desperately wished he would. He just sat there silent, and somehow, his silence hurt more than any accusation. The tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. "You said you trusted me," I whispered. Was that a lie? His jaw tightened, but he didn't answer. That was all I needed to know. I straightened my shoulders, blinking back more tears. "Fine." My voice was quiet, but steady now. "If you don't believe me, there's no point in staying." I gathered my papers, my hands trembling only slightly. As I reached the door, I hesitated. "I thought you were different," I said softly. "But in the end, you're just like the rest of them. You only trust what you can see." Still no reply. So I walked out, and this time, he didn't stop me. I didn't cry until I got home. And when I did, it wasn't quiet. It was the kind of crying that leaves you hollow, because it wasn't just about Nicholas not believing me. It was about how I'd let myself believe in love again. I didn't wait for the sun to rise. By the time the city was stirring awake, I'd already packed up my desk. It was strange how quickly you could erase yourself from a place. A few framed sketches. A potted succulent I'd rescued from the clearance rack. A stack of notes I'd written for a man who no longer trusted me. All gone now. The resignation letter sat heavy in my bag, though it wasn't heavy at all. Just a single sheet of paper with a few polite sentences. I didn't need to explain myself. Nicholas Reed didn't ask for explanations. And I wasn't going to beg for belief. Not from someone who could sit across from me and say nothing, when silence felt louder than any accusation. I walked down the quiet hallway toward his office, my heels clicking softly against the polished floors. Each step felt final. There would be no dramatic goodbye, no confrontation. If I had to leave, I would leave with my dignity intact. When I reached his door, I paused. Through the frosted glass, I saw the faint silhouette of Nicholas at his desk. He wasn't moving. I wondered if he was staring at one of his endless spreadsheets, or if his mind was somewhere far away. It didn't matter anymore. I slipped inside. The room smelled faintly of sandalwood and coffee his scent. On his desk, I placed 2 things. 1, my resignation letter. 2, a small model house I'd been working on late at night, back when I thought there might be a future to dream about. The house was simple. Wide windows, a porch swing, a room labeled for laughter, and on the base, I'd stitched a line of thread into the wood. If I must leave, I will leave in silence, because the one who once loved me now stays silent, even louder. For a moment, I stood there staring at the model. This wasn't just wood and glue. It was every hope I dared to rebuild. And now, I was walking away from it. As I turned to leave, my fingers brushed against the door handle. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to turn back to say something, anything that might make him look up, break the stillness and fight for me. But no sound came from behind me, just silence. So I walked out. I didn't know what hurt more, losing him, or realizing he'd already let me go without a word. But Nicholas Reed wasn't done with me. Not yet. The office felt colder than usual. Nicholas sat motionless behind his desk, the curtains half drawn, leaving streaks of gray light across the room. In front of him, the small model house rested quietly. His fingers brushed the smooth wood, tracing the delicate stitching on its base. If I must leave, I will leave in silence, because the one who once loved me now stays silent even louder. The words struck deeper than any argument could have. Then he'd been wrong. So devastatingly, unforgivably wrong. It started with a simple request to his head of security, an order he'd given without much thought. Pull the original footage from the cafe camera. I want the raw files. He hadn't expected the answer. Sir, that viral video was edited. Heavily. Samantha didn't lean in. She was pulling her hand away. The man Ethan Ross paid a tech agency to crop and splice the angles. Nicholas's world shifted in that moment. The chair beneath him might as well have dissolved into air. And now, here he was, staring at the resignation letter Samantha had left on his desk. She hadn't begged, hadn't yelled, hadn't even asked for a second chance. She'd simply walked away. And for the first time in years, Nicholas realized how much he hated silence. The last time he'd felt this hollow was the night his wife died. He'd buried himself in work back then, pretending emotions were for people with less to lose. But Samantha had slipped past his defenses before he even noticed. Her laughter, her stubbornness, her way of making even his cold boardroom feel alive. And he'd let her go without a fight, without asserting. Nicholas leaned back in his chair, pressing the heels of his hands to his eyes. He wasn't the type of man who cried. He hadn't cried at the funeral, hadn't cried when the doctors said we did all we could, hadn't cried in the years since. But now, sitting alone in an office too big for one person, surrounded by success that suddenly felt meaningless, the tears came, quietly at first, then harder. He didn't try to stop them, because maybe, just maybe, this was what it felt like to finally understand the weight of losing someone who mattered. By the next morning, Nicholas Reed had made a decision. He didn't care about his image, his company, or the legacy his mother clung to. He only cared about finding her and proving for once in his life that he could choose love over fear. Nicholas hadn't slept in 2 days. Not since the truth came crashing down like a wave he'd been too blind to see. The security reports, the doctored videos, the damning trail of transactions linking Ethan Ross to his mother's assistant. Every lie, every manipulation, every seed of doubt planted carefully to rip Samantha out of his life, and he'd let them win, until now. That morning, the boardroom at Hail Corporation was packed. Directors, investors. His mother, Veronica, seated at the far end with her trademark ice-cold composure. Nicholas stood at the head of the table, his tailored suit immaculate, but his expression softer than anyone had ever seen. "I've called this meeting for one reason." He began, voice calm but steady. The room fell silent. My mother believes love is a weakness, that emotions have no place in business. She's wrong. A ripple of murmurs spread through the directors. Nicholas didn't flinch. She orchestrated a smear campaign against Samantha Blake, a woman whose only crime was making me feel alive again. And I let her succeed. His hands curled slightly against the table. That ends today. Veronica rose to her feet. "Nicholas, don't be ridiculous. You're the CEO of Hail Corp. You can't throw it all away over some watch me." His voice cut through the air like a blade. He turned to face the cameras broadcasting the meeting live. If Hail Corp cannot accept a CEO who knows how to love, then Hail Corp will have to find another CEO. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Nicholas tugged at his tie, unfastening it with deliberate precision. "I resign. Effective immediately." Papers shuffled. Voices rose in shock and protest. But Nicholas didn't stay to hear them. Across town, Samantha sat in her tiny apartment, her laptop open to a news site she hadn't intended to click on. And there he was. Nicholas Reed. Leave. Broadcasting his resignation to the world. Her tea sat untouched, growing cold in her hands. If Hail Corp cannot accept a CEO who knows how to love, then Hail Corp will have to find another CEO. Her breath caught. He's giving it up. For me, For a long time after the live stream ended, she didn't move, didn't know what to feel. Anger, hope, fear. Because for the first time, Samantha wondered, maybe he really was different. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. One message, one question. "Can I see you just once?" I stared at the screen, my heart torn between running and answering. I didn't hear the knock at first. I was still staring at my laptop screen frozen on Nicholas's face from the live stream. His words echoed in my mind. If Hail Corp cannot accept a CEO who knows how to love, then Hail Corp will have to find another CEO. He said it like he meant it. Like the world could burn around him, and he wouldn't care not if it meant holding on to me. I pressed a hand to my chest. I didn't want to hope. But I couldn't stop the cracks forming in the walls I'd built around my heart. And the knock came again, this time louder. I rose slowly, unsure whether to answer. When I opened the door, my breath caught. It was him. Nicholas Reed. But not the Nicholas from the boardroom. This one stood on my doorstep in a plain white shirt sleeves, rolled up hair slightly mussed like he'd run his hands through it 100 times. And in his hands, he held a rolled-up blueprint, tied with a pale blue ribbon. My favorite color. "Hi," he said, voice low and rough like he hadn't slept. I gripped the edge of the door. "What are you doing here?" He exhaled shakily. "I'm not good at saying the right things. You know that by now." I didn't answer, but I drew something for you. He continued, holding out the blueprint like it weighed more than the world. I hesitated before taking it. Unrolling it carefully, I found a hand-drawn house. Not just any house. Our house. The one I'd once described to him in passing back, when I thought he wasn't even listening. A wraparound porch, wide windows for the morning light, a small room labeled forgiveness. I traced the lines with my fingers, my vision blurring. "I'm not asking you to forget," Nicholas said softly, "or to trust me right away." I looked up. His gray eyes, always so cold and guarded, now shimmered with something raw and unhidden. He swallowed. "I want to build this house with you, even if it takes a lifetime, even if we never get past the foundation." The tears came before I could stop them. "You hurt me," I whispered. "I know." His voice cracked. "And I'll regret it every day for the rest of my life. Why now? Nicholas, why fight for me after pushing me away?" He stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough for me to feel his presence, because I finally realized he said that I can rebuild an empire, but I'll never rebuild you. For a long moment, the only sound was my uneven breathing. Then I asked the one question that had been burning in my chest. "Are you sure?" Nicholas's jaw tightened. "I gave up Hail Corp. I gave up the life my family planned for me. There's nothing left to give up, except my pride. And you can take that too, if it means you'll stay." Oh. Something in me broke then. Not in the way it had before, shattered and bleeding. This time it broke open, wide enough to let him in. I let out a shaky laugh through my tears. "You really are terrible at love." "I warned you," he said, a ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. "Then let's learn together," I murmured. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I stepped forward into his arms. Some love stories don't begin with perfection. They begin with broken people deciding to rebuild, not just walls and windows, but each other. The sunlight was warm that morning, streaming gently through the glass walls of the studio. I'd opened every window, letting the breeze carry in the scent of spring. It felt like a new beginning, and maybe, for once, it really was. Nicholas stood by the door, his white shirt sleeves rolled up, hair slightly tousled from the wind outside. In his hands was a small velvet box. My heart thudded in my chest. "Claire," he said softly, stepping closer. I'd never heard my name sound like that, like a prayer, like a man holding something too precious to risk breaking. "I'm not good at love. I've spent most of my life learning how to build companies, not hearts. And I know I've failed you before." His voice faltered for a moment, but his eyes stayed steady on mine. "I don't want to fail again." Then, to my shock, he sank to one knee. It wasn't perfect. His tie was crooked. His voice shook slightly, but it was real. "I can't promise I'll always say the right words, or that I won't make mistakes." He opened the box, revealing a simple platinum ring engraved on the inside. "Room for forgiveness always. But I can promise this," he continued. "I want to sign a lifetime contract with you. No exit clause. No expiration date. Just one condition: that we keep building. together. The tears came before I could stop them. I let out a shaky laugh. You sound like a CEO even when you propose. His lips curved faintly. It's all I know. For a moment, the world fell quiet. Even the birds outside seemed to pause, waiting for my answer. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I whispered. His shoulders sagged in relief as he slipped the ring onto my finger. And when he stood, I fell into his arms, clutching the front of his shirt, like I'd never let go again. Somewhere in the studio, a soft piano tune began to play. Neither of us moved to stop it, because in that moment it felt like the whole world was holding its breath for us. For the first time in years, I wasn't running. I was home. They say love doesn't build houses, but they're wrong, because the home we built wasn't made of wood or glass. It was made of forgiveness, laughter, and two imperfect people who chose each other again and again. That evening, the studio was filled with the golden glow of sunset. Nicholas sat across from me, his hand warm and steady over mine. The ring on my finger caught the light, a simple band that somehow felt heavier than gold. Not because of its weight, but because of everything it meant. I watched him quietly, taking in the sharp lines of his face, softened by the fading sun. This man, the one who had once made my walls rise higher than ever, and then broken them down brick by brick, not with grand gestures, not with perfect words, but with persistence, with mistakes, with the kind of flawed love that feels more real than fairy tales. My mind drifted back to that night, the night I first hid under his table, shaking and desperate to escape a ghost from my past. I remembered how his voice, cool and calm, had anchored me when I thought I might drown. What exactly are you hunting for down there? I didn't know then. But maybe in a way, I've been hunting for him all along. That was also the night he first said it. You belong to me. At the time, I thought it was arrogance, a line from a man used to getting whatever he wanted. But now I knew better. He hadn't meant it like that. He'd meant you belong here. Safe. Loved. Finally. My fingers tightened around his as a soft piano melody drifted from the corner speaker. For a moment, we didn't speak. We didn't have to. That night, I thought was the first time he said I belonged to him. And this time, I believe him. This time I know he won't let go. As the music swelled, Nicholas leaned closer, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. The kind of kiss that feels less like a promise and more like a quiet certainty. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running anymore. I felt home. The camera lingers on their hands intertwined, the sunlight fading softly behind them. Some love stories aren't about finding someone perfect. They're about finding someone who stays even after seeing every imperfect part of you. And this was ours.